Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the YouTube channel of PropTrenz, the most complete real estate analytics platform for Mexico. It has more than 20 years of data, so make sure you go check it out. And it has a wealth of valuable resources that can be useful to you. It's completely free. In this video, I want to share with you um, how much does real estate cost in Mexico. It's a very common question that I get asked a lot. And I have an article written on this subject on the website proptrends.com. But in this video, I'm gonna just share with you everything that I know. So this is the million dollar question, right? Sometimes costs 100,000. So how much does property cost in Mexico? It varies a lot, right? You have your low-end homes and you have your luxury properties. Here's the reality I've seen over my many years of living in different locations in Mexico. It's a country of massive contradictions. Mm, if you just want to get by and live like a local, you can find properties ranging from as low as 50K to maybe 100K, 150K. Um, that's gonna get you something really nice in a local area, of course. On the other hand, you can also find condos that's up to $5 million in those nice beach areas with a lot of tourists and foreigners. The gap is enormous, and some of these areas are even more expensive than most areas in the U.S. Um, so that's really a huge contradiction. Um, so I know that you want specific numbers. So we need to look at this uh, regionally because Mexico um, is not just one market. What you pay in Riviera Maya has absolutely nothing to do with what you will pay in the Central Highlands, for example, right? So let's get into the nitty gritty. The national average is around 1.6 million pesos, and for luxury market, it can go up to and exceed 500K USD. For the beachfront properties, they usually have a premium of 40 to 60% compared to the inland properties. Now, the first location we need to talk about is Mexico City, right? Because it's an increasingly popular destination with many foreigners looking to move there and live there. Um, it's a beast in and of itself because it's humongous, has more than 10 million people, one of the biggest city in the entire Latin America. It's sophisticated, expensive, and arguably has a very dynamic real estate market. If you want to live here, you can forget about the idea of cheap Mexico, right? It's not cheap anymore. You're competing with wealthy locals, international investors, and a scarcity of buildable land. Prices in prime areas can rival cities like Miami or Madrid. So let's talk about the place everybody wants to live in Mexico City, right? Polanco. This is the Beverly Hills of Mexico. If you want to live there, you are paying for the status, you're paying for the luxury, um, as well as all the convenient infrastructure that comes with it. And of course, it's highly secure. Unlikely you will get robbed walking on the streets. So for an area like Polanco, you are really gonna find anything decent for below $5,000 per square meter. And for the ultra luxury stuff, you are talking about upward of $10,000 to $15,000 per square meter. And yeah, it's absolutely wild. Then you have the other areas to consider if Polanco is not your thing. Because trust me, I myself is not a fan of Polanco, and I've met many people that do not like to live in Polanco because it's too residential, too commercial. It doesn't have um, too many Mexican characteristic to it. It's just like any other big city with those luxury um, high-end apartment buildings. So it definitely lack some character to it. That's what I would say. If you're looking for a more Mexican style living, right? You have the more hipster areas like Roma and Condesa. These areas have exploded in popularity during the past decade. I remember Roma was a very gritty area before the pandemic, but now it has transformed into um, a capital of digital nomads. The price there is a little cheaper than Polanco, ranging from $3,500 to $6,000 per square meter. The inventory there is also older, often require renovation, which is something definitely to consider. If you want value, you have to look even further because as these places get more and more gentrified, people are starting to move outward into areas like Navarrete Poniente and Del Valle, Tacubaya, these areas that surrounds Roma and Condesa, right? These areas are also very good choices. They are safe, they are very family oriented, and they might not have as many entertainment options as Roma or Condesa, but if you wanna live your life in peace in a zona that's very family friendly, I think these areas are even better than uh, Roma or Condesa. You can find decent apartments there for under $3,000 per square meter. So if you want a more authentic Mexican experience, this is something to consider for sure. Now let's talk about the beach, right? Everybody wanna go to Tulum or Los Cabos nowadays, but yeah, the price there are definitely through the roof. Here's what most people don't realize: if you want a piece of the beach, there's actually two different markets. There's the beachfront properties, and there's the uh, inner city properties, right? That's a little far from the beach. The prices between them are uh, astronomical, right? They're not in the same world. In places like the Riviera Maya, being on the beach versus being right across the highway is a difference of a couple $100,000. Let's take Tulum for example. It went from a backpacker's haven to an Instagram influencer hub overnight. You can find a two-bedroom condo in the jungle for 250K to 400K. But if you want actual beachfront in the hotel zone, meaning like the moment you walk out of your door, you are at the beach, that sort of property, you are talking about double, triple the prices, right? The market there has softened a little because of overbuild and oversupply, but still the price is very, very high. Not any less than buying a property in the U.S. On the other hand, Playa del Carmen, which is also becoming increasingly popular amongst tourists, it's more like a city with better infrastructure than Tulum, right? It's more developed and more mature. You can get a solid vacation rental in the downtown area for around 200K. It won't be right next to the beach, but it's a good investment option because you can rent it well, right? It's not too far from the beach and it's not too expensive. Now let's talk about the Pacific. They offer a different vibe compared to their Caribbean counterparties. They are more topographical. They have hills and ocean, right? And they do not have the jungles like what you see in Tulum. For example, the romantic zone in Puerto Vallarta is also very pricey. The condos easily hit 400K to 600K. But if you are willing to go a little bit more north, you can get more square meter for the same amount of money. Even though the prices have increased a lot after pandemic as well. Then we talk about Los Cabos, right? Uh, it's a very Americanized place now, and it's the heaviest hitter of the luxury real estate market in Mexico. And the market has almost entirely dollarized. You have entry level homes in decent gated communities starting at 450K. But the median for luxury there is well over $2 million. It's basically an extension of California real estate at this point. Now, if you don't care about ocean or being next to the beach, right? You rather live somewhere that's quiet, with more culture and colonial feel. Then you have um, different inland options that you can consider. Places like Guadalajara, Guanajuato, Querétaro, um, San Miguel de Allende, and many more options for you to choose from. The best part is if you buy in those areas as a foreigner, you can just own it outright under your name. You don't need a bank trust. Like if you want to buy near the beach or near the border, right? So if you want to live somewhere inland, let's take San Miguel de Allende for example. It used to be a charming little Mexican town, but because people have uh, discovered it more and more, and as foreigners flood in to this small town, it's becoming quite expensive now. So for places like that, it's just very touristy. It's most likely not a good investment at this point. But you still have places like Merida. Merida is becoming very very popular because it's ranked as not as the just as the safest city in Mexico, but the safest city in the entire world. Mm. One thing to note about is that the heat is very intense in the summer, so that's something to think about if you are not able to, adjust to the climate. But there's still value to be had in Merida. Um, I think we are still early in this real estate boom in Merida. You can still find a normal, nice little house for under 150K, even though they are becoming increasingly harder and harder to find, of course. You have more upscale homes with good amenities like pools that's trading around 300 to 400K. It's the city is booming definitely, but it's not. Uh, the price is not rising as fast as a small town like San Miguel de Allende, right? Because Merida is much bigger than that. Um, Now next we have Lake Chapala. Lake Chapala is right next to Guadalajara, and it's a hotbed of retired expats. It has the biggest expat community in Mexico, and it also has the best climate in the world. Yeah, the climate there is. I've been there once. Um, it's constant. It doesn't change, right? It's very nice all the time. So that's definitely a factor that attracted a lot of foreigners to live there. You can find comfortable single level homes for around 250K to 400K, and the inventory there mm, doesn't move too fast, because it's already a mature market. It's not a new booming market like San Miguel de Allende or Merida. Next, let's talk about the hidden cost. Many people think that buying real estate in Mexico is just like buying it in the US. Well, that's not quite the same as far as the closing cost, right? Because I know that the closing cost in the US uh, is pretty low, right? Is not that big of a deal. But in Mexico, it's insane. The closing costs can cost you from 5 to 8% of the total sale price of the property. Just the property transfer tax, which is the tax you pay to the government when you buy a property, is something that's mandatory. Just the property transfer tax is around 3 to 5%. I remember in Tulum it's something like 4%. In Playa del Carmen, it's something like 3%. So it's the tax there is definitely not cheap. And you have other fees to take into consideration as well. For example, the notary fees. The public notary in Mexico is not like the notary in the US. The notary in Mexico is more like a lawyer. They handle every aspect of the property transaction, right? They handle the title transfer, the tax withholding, the property registration with the government and everything. And their fee is gonna range from 1 to 1.5% of the sale price. If you are a foreigner buying in a restricted zone, that means anywhere that's near the beach or the border, then you cannot direct hold title under your name. You have to hold it under a bank trust, and the bank will hold the title for you, and you own the trust, right? So that's the workaround to own properties in those restricted zones. So if you wanna buy in those restricted zones, you have to pay a bank trust setup, bank trust fee, right? So there's a one-time setup fee the bank is gonna charge you. That's around $2,000 to $2,500. That's the one-time setup fee. Plus, every year you will have to pay an annual fee of around $500 to $700. That's the going cost every year. So it's definitely not cheap, and it's not worth it for most people to obtain financing in Mexico because the interest rate here is very high. So most likely you're gonna buy with all cash. So if you're gonna buy with all cash, you're gonna have to take into all those additional closing costs into consideration as well. So all those have to be in cash as well. Now, my favorite topic, new construction versus resale. There's something in Mexico that the US doesn't have when it comes to real estate, is that you can buy pre-construction property, meaning you give the developer money to buy his property before he has built the property, right? And you might have guessed it, there's risk involved in this scheme. But you also get the benefit of paying less than market price, usually 10 to 20% less. Even though it's becoming increasingly less common to have such a big discount in Mexico, uh, because the real estate market in Mexico is very hot right now, and developers are less and less willing to give out big discounts. And if you were to buy a pre-construction property, you will have to wait at least 1, 2, or 3 years down the road to get your property constructed and hand it over to you. Anything could happen during that period. The developer could go bankrupt, they could disappear, and all that sort of stuff. So it's not like if you have to go this route, you have to really know the developer well. Really make sure that the developer has enough reserve to cover whatever emergency that might come up with that he has to pay. This is not something for for the newbies. Basically, you need a certain amount of experience and someone that knows what he's doing to guide you to buy a pre-sale property. For me, I much more prefer a resale property. What you see is what you get. Something that you can go see physically, and touch the walls, check the water pressure, whatever you want to do. So that's my thing. That's the route I would go. Even though you wouldn't get as much big of a discount for resale properties, but you also wouldn't have the same amount of risks. How not to overpay, how to get a good deal. In Mexico, it's common for the listing price to be way higher than the actual value of the property. So you have to negotiate. Otherwise, like you're just paying all those extra money for nothing. First rule is to never fall in love with what you see. If you wanna buy a property, you need to not just consider how good it looks, but also like the investment aspect of it, like how much cash you're gonna generate if you rent it out, right? How um, how old is the property? How good or bad is the construction quality? Right? All those things you need to take into consideration. You gotta always ask for the comparative market analysis from your agent. There's no such a thing as Zillow in Mexico. There's nowhere you can find historical transaction prices. So the only place you can find some comparables is through your agent or the brokerage of your agent, or your friends, whoever that has their private network and private data, because the listing price is not the sale price. They are completely different things. You know what you see on websites like Inmuebles 24, um, those prices don't really mean anything when it comes to assessing the fair prices of a property. Another thing to take note of is that is currency exchange, right? Because you're in Mexico, you're not in the U.S. anymore, so you have to use their currency, and their currency is Mexican pesos. Um, and the exchange rate between USD and pesos fluctuate quite a lot depending on the time of the year. So if you can get a good deal in a different currency and the seller accepts it, then definitely do it. If your seller is a foreigner, then he might accept USD as the payment method instead of Mexican pesos. So if that's more favorable to you, um, then you should negotiate with the seller to pay him in USD. And if it's more favorable to pay in Mexican pesos, then you should negotiate to pay in Mexican pesos. My final piece of advice is that you really have to live in the area before you buy. Don't just buy something sight unseen and wire the money and hope everything is gonna turn out to be perfect. That's not gonna happen. You know, uh, like don't do that. Just don't do that. You have to live in the area where you want to buy for at least a few months to get a feel for whether it's a good area or not, whether it's somewhere that's worth investing or not, right? That's absolutely crucial. Also, many deals are being done offline in Mexico. A lot of times, the sellers just put out a for sale sign in front of their property, and you can just walk your neighborhood to see is there any for sale sign. Call them directly on WhatsApp and negotiate and talk directly with the seller. So that's something that you can do without relying on other people. This way, at least you can get a good feel of how much um, roughly the price costs in your neighborhood. That's all my advices, and I hope you have get a clear understanding of what's going on in the Mexican market and what are the different price points for different properties. If you want more information, make sure to go to PropTrenz.com. There's a wealth of information totally free. Yeah, with that being said, I will see you in the next video. Cheers.